a 501c3 organization focused on protecting the Constitution and the separation of church and state in Arizona for over a decade. I'm excited to be hosting our 5th in a series of candidate forums for school board candidates in Arizona. You know, we decided to begin hosting this type of event because our members care about the growing threat of white Christian nationalism in our state and in our country. And we are seeing how this political ideology, it's not a religion, how this political ideology is threatening our local school boards. And of course, all the children who attend the schools and all the people who work in those schools. And our school boards truly are the heart of our democracy. I know that we probably have some newcomers here, and if our mission is something that you care deeply about, we ask you to consider becoming a member of our organization, perhaps even becoming a monthly donor or volunteering for our various events throughout the state. Or better yet, you can do all three. Some of the other things that we do is we can guide you through the whole request to speak or RTS app to engage with your elected officials at the Arizona legislature when you sign up for our action alerts. Thank goodness this 2022 legislative session is over. But in the meantime, if you still want to sign up for those kinds of things, we will walk you through the whole entire process. Tonight, we are going to be speaking with candidates for the Deer Valley Unified School Board. According to public records, there are several candidates running for just 2 seats in DVUSD. So I want to acknowledge the other candidates who are running in DVUSD. There is Jessica Trejo, Melody Holian-Copes, and I hope I'm pronouncing everybody's names right, but unfortunately they're not here tonight. Tony Bowie, Donna Pulley, and Paul Carver did not respond to our email. Another candidate, make sure I get the name right, David Alvarado, said that he was hoping to attend, but we never heard back from him, so he's not here tonight. You know, I would be remiss, however, if I did not bring up the recent controversy surrounding the Deer Valley School Board. There's a current board member, Kim Fisher, and she's married to a gentleman named William or Bill Preston, who claimed in a Gab post that Hitler was right. And there's a link that we can provide if you want to learn more about that particular, you know, and of course, you know, guilt by association. We're not saying anything like that, but it is interesting that that is the sentiment of somebody who's married to a school board candidate. And the people who live in the Deer Valley Unified School District should really know that. There's also a current candidate, Paul Carver, who is a member of the 3 Percenters. Now, this is a national group that has been connected to several violent events. I'm certainly not saying that Mr. Carver is involved in any of those events. However, it is interesting that he is a member of the 3 Percenters. Some of these events include the Unite the Right Rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, and several 3 Percenter members have been indicted for charges related to the January 6th Capitol attack. Again, not an indictment of Mr. Carver himself, but I wish that he would have come to be able to talk about, you know, that affiliation that he has. And in Canada, the 3 Percenters are a designated terrorist group alongside other extremist networks like the Proud Boys, Antum-Waffen Division, not sure how to pronounce that, and another organization known as the Base. So these are all facts that are documented. We're going to go ahead and share those articles that we found online so that our members and anybody else who happens to be attending tonight can learn more about who's representing them, who's married to their representation, and who's running in these districts. Because school board races matter, and the people in these communities deserve to know who hopes to represent them, the children, the families, and the staff in these districts. So this leaves us with 2 candidates who are joining our forum tonight. We have Craig Beckman, Stephanie Simachek, and in a moment, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But first, I want to explain the format. We will go ahead and go in alphabetical order for introductions, and candidates will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Actually, I think I said 3, right? I did say 3 minutes to introduce yourselves. So Lindsay, our development director and really the right hand of this organization, will keep us all in check and let us know when we've gone over time. So I will make sure that I let you know when you're running out of time. Pay attention to the chat, candidates, so that you can see for yourself where you are on time. So we'll do that alphabetical order. Then we will repeat the format, and at around 7:05 or 7:10, we will ask the audience if you'd like to ask any questions. So please feel free to write your questions in either the Q&A or in the chat. And so since Beckman comes before Simicek, we are going to go ahead and let Craig Beckman go ahead and introduce himself to the audience. Go ahead, Craig.
Thank you, Jeannie, Lindsay, and Secular AZ for having me. It's great to be here. My name is Craig Beckman, and I am running for DVUSD School Board. I'm a parent in the district with a third grader and soon to be kindergartner. I'm a proponent of public education, an avid supporter of educators, and an advocate for parents and students. Many of the viewers tonight have probably seen, heard, or experienced what's been happening with education recently. It's been a tough couple of years, and this year wasn't any easier. My oldest just finished up second grade at Union Park. She's in the Spanish immersion and gifted programs. Much of her school experience has been in what we've all called unprecedented times. It's not normal. Despite that, I've watched her grow, thrive. She's gone from a distracted, somewhat always causing mischief kid to an intelligent, talented, helpful, compassionate, empathetic young lady. And while I'd love to take all the credit for that, for my wife and myself, it wouldn't be true. It is definitely in part to the passionate educators who spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week with her, helping her understand her emotions, focus on her tasks, providing her with a fountain of knowledge, and leading her towards academic success. But I've also been given a unique lens into the experiences of students, parents, and teachers. For the last year and a half, I've been helping to admin a Facebook group dedicated to the district. I understand the struggles of our student populations, the frustrations of our parents, and the challenges of our educators, and that our staff are experiencing. This profession has everything to do with a student-centered focus. It is the most important and most valuable profession in the world. Without educators, there would be no other professions. Whether we have college-bound students or students who are more likely to go into the workforce right out of high school, we need to provide them with the tools and resources they need to be prepared for the real world. A big piece of that puzzle is providing educators with the support, funding, and resources they need to support our students. It requires that we give parents a voice, involve them in the decision-making process, and help them be involved in all aspects of their child's educational journey. At the end of the day, I'm running to better serve our kids, parents, staff, and community. I will continue to advocate for students and families, work to provide support for our educators and staff, and lay the groundwork so that students of the future can benefit from what we've built together.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Craig, for that introduction. And thank you for coming in on our time. Stephanie Simicek, please go ahead and introduce yourself to the people. And make sure you're unmuted.
All right, I'll start over. Thank you so much for having me this evening. My name is Stephanie Simicek. I am a parent. I am a former teacher, a volunteer, and current substitute for our Deer Valley Unified School District. I'm running for the one of two positions that are available for our governing board this year. I want to start by saying that I am driven by a passion for public education. I believe public education is what helps hold our communities together through one common goal, which would be our children, because they are our future. With that said, I believe that every single child deserves the right to equal access to public education, no matter their race, ethnic background, religion, gender, socioeconomic status, or citizenship. I was recently named a Public School Proud Candidate by Save Our Schools Arizona, which I'm very proud of, because I really feel like our teachers and our staff and our students are what make this district one of the best in Arizona. We are a large district, but we are one of the best districts in Arizona. And because of that, we have a responsibility as a community to come together to make changes so that our students and our staff can flourish in the learning environments that they are in. Unfortunately, we are losing teachers, we are losing students, we are losing staff due to pay shortages, overcrowding of classrooms, lack of resources for all learner types, and an overall respect for the teaching profession in general. In order for our students to be prepared for the future, we need to take some action. And this begins at a local community level. This is why I am running. This is what I can do for my community. We need to elect leaders that represent the best interests of all of our students, all of our families, all of our teachers and staff of DVUSD. I'm running because there's both immediate and long-term issues that need to be addressed. Most of them go hand in hand, they work together. And I hope that tonight we'll be able to kind of dive a little bit deeper into more of that and what we can see and what those issues might be and how we can solve them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie and Craig, for that introduction. And now we're going to, like I said, since there's just two of you, we'll just kind of go back and forth. So Stephanie, you'll start the first question this time, and then Craig, and then we'll flip-flop it back and forth, okay? So why did you decide to run for the Deer Valley Unified School Board? So that first question is going to go to Stephanie. Stephanie, what is it that compelled you to run for your local school board?
As I previously mentioned, I have a deep passion for public education. I decided to run for school board not actually too long ago, but I decided to run because when I began to witness some firsthand situations that were happening, when I showed my concern for what was going on, one of the members of our current board was very, let's just say I became very uncomfortable with her responses. I did not feel like they were parent-centered or student-centered or teacher-centered. I felt like they were kind of about her own agenda. I am very uncomfortable having this board member, and we could possibly elect other board members that have this alternative, what I see as an alternative agenda for our district. It could be harmful for our teachers, it could be harmful for our students and for our families. This includes, but it's not limited to, reducing funding for our public education through the expansion of vouchers, and there are many other things. For those of you who have been paying attention, I'm sure you all have, this is not just limited to Arizona, this is happening all across the country. I feel like it's a way that people are trying to get in at a local level with the wrong intentions. We need to elect those leaders that represent like I said before, the best interests of all of our students and our families and our teachers and our staff. We need to promote livable wages and parent communication and campus improvement plans, and parent volunteering and individual education plans, which are our IEPs for our special education students. We need to really focus on reducing our class sizes. It's a big issue in our district. It is large, but this is when I talked earlier about going hand in hand with issues that are arising in our district, I feel like class sizes is a huge root of some of the issues in a way that we can really solve a lot of our problems. And I'm running so I can advocate for all of it. You know, like I said before, I'm a parent. I have a daughter in high school. She goes to Barry Goldwater. She's going to be a sophomore. I have a daughter who's going to be a second grader at Union Park. My daughter, who's a second grader, is IEP, and my oldest daughter is honors. So I'm kind of on all the areas and can cover all the areas of parents and seeing all sides of everything. So thank you.
That's time. Thank you so much. Wow, second grade and a sophomore. You are a very busy person, that's for sure. Craig, same question going to you. So what compelled you to run for the Deer Valley Unified School District Governing Board?
Yeah, so for like the last year and a half, I've been watching and recapping nearly every board meeting so that parents and community members are well informed of the decisions that are being made for our children. In that, I found that there was a significant presence of partisan politics in the decision-making process for decisions that would directly impact our children, our families, and our community. I'm a firm believer that in education, there shouldn't be any kind of political agenda. So for nearly a year, I spent some time with the team seeking out potential candidates for this nonpartisan position. In that process, I had a lot of really great conversations with people, but not a lot of interest due to the increasingly political nature of school boards. As someone who's dedicated a lot of time and energy to providing nonpartisan factual information to our families and community, both at the district level and trying to recap some of the stuff going on in the state legislature in a nonpartisan manner, I decided that I could be one to make a positive impact on our children's future. So after a lot of pushing from my family and a great support network of parents in the district, I announced my candidacy in late April. So we've been at it just over 2 months now. And the outpouring of support has been amazing. So with that, during my tenure, I would hope to put more emphasis on the needs of our students and our educators. I want to help repair the relationship between stakeholder groups, our parents and teachers, teachers and administrators, administrators and parents, by fostering discussions and ensuring that we have a high level of communication and transparency for every decision we make. I want to make sure that I want to make decisions that have a positive impact on all 32,000 of our students, our 4,000 plus staff members, and countless community members so that our entire community can thrive from our efforts. I believe in our district and its success, but I have a background in marketing and my business is built off of the constant refinement and improvement of what works and figuring out what's broken and fixing it. So I believe that we can be the best and always be continuing to strive to be better.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to actually pivot a little bit just because I heard both of you say something similar. So I'm going to go off script here for a second, but I heard both of you say something about an alternative agenda. And so I'm curious, though Deer Valley is really close to where I live, I'm not in that district proper. I would love to hear a little bit more about this alternative agenda that is happening with your school board, because I feel like the people who are attending this right now. So just in a couple of minutes, and we'll start with Craig this time, what kinds of things are you seeing that is a more, because for people who are watching who don't know, school board positions are nonpartisan. You do not put whether you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent. It is a nonpartisan race. I think it should be a nonpartisan race. But what do you mean when you say alternative agenda? Could you maybe give us a couple of examples? And let's go ahead and start with Craig first. Go ahead.
So I think the first example that I experienced in recapping my board meetings was a particular board member. We were virtual at the time when I took over this parents group and started doing these recaps. So a particular board member was very upset that we were virtual. Our children were virtual at the time, and the board meetings were also virtual. And every board meeting, she would thank the Patriot Party for giving her a space and the support she needed to attend the board meetings. And I felt that we shouldn't be thanking a political party for what's going on in our schools. There should be no partisan politics within our school boards. We have to represent 32,000, 33,000 children and countless employees and community members. And I believe that we need to keep our politics out of it, and we need to keep our religious convictions out of it. I fully support the First Amendment and your right to have a desire to be religious, but there's kids in the district, like we're a very diverse district. We have large populations of non-Christians, and we have to represent them just as much as we represent anyone else. So we really need to make sure that we're keeping our politics and our religion out of our district. Another example is there was a push to stopped the National Day of Silence back in April for our students and our students participating in it. The district was not promoting this National Day of Silence. They had only sent out, a couple admins had sent out an email stating that children may participate and that it is their right to participate, so just be aware, trying to make the staff aware of what was going on. So I showed up to a board meeting and I voiced my opinion, and my only opinion was that it is a First Amendment right for our students to participate in these activities. The politics of it all, they continue to push that they're doing what's constitutional, but then they want to strip away the First Amendment rights from students, and they don't lose their First Amendment rights at the door. So I'm here to protect students first and foremost.
Okay, same question to you, Stephanie. So like I said, I heard you talk about an alternative agenda. I think I'm familiar with the Day of Silence. So what are some of the things that you've seen where it seems to be an alternative agenda, not necessarily focused on, you know, the things that school board members should be focused on, and that's budgets, hiring a superintendent, making sure kids are achieving and that they're safe. So what is the alternative agenda that you've seen, Stephanie?
Absolutely. Mine came from a personal experience as well. You had mentioned earlier, Jeannie, that there was a connection between Kim Fisher's husband and some of the groups that he was belonged to or may have not been. I read the article that was written. I know actually that article was written by a prior DVUSD student. It was heavily researched before it was put out. I read the article and it was extremely alarming to me. So I did send an email to all of the board members, and most of them wrote back and said, you know, we can't really, you know, do much about it. But what I received from Ms. Fisher was that it was a conspiracy theory against her, and kind of went on and on about things that they weren't what I was trying to address with her. I was concerned because, again, like we've talked about already, this is not a political position. It shouldn't be. It's education. It's our students. It's our teachers. But when you bring in hate and you bring in racism, that's kind of where I had a problem, because it has no business in our school board. And so that to me was kind of my first thing. So I started kind of diving in a little bit deeper. Everybody was like, you need to talk to Craig about it. You need to, you know, touch base with him. And I did. I reached out to Craig and we started talking, and I got additional information on my concerns. And then, you know, he talked about possibly running for school board. I was nervous, but I was also really tired of just seeing this go down and people thinking it was okay. She did proceed to post my response on her personal Facebook page, which I thought was very unprofessional with my name and my email. I just told her I had no desire to go back and forth with her. I was just concerned for our students and our families of the district. And so I left it at that. I did not go back and forth with her. I don't plan to do that. It's just not my focus. My focus is on our students and our teachers and our staff. So I'm just really driven to in that direction rather than the alternative agenda, which hopefully I addressed, but.
Right, yeah. No, thank you for that. You know, it's interesting too. Many people may know that I am a former board member myself, and there is kind of a chain of command that you go through. And, you know, certainly kind of rule number one is to allow for that chain of command. So very interesting goings on over there in Deer Valley. So let's go ahead and go to the next question. And this time it is going to be, okay, hold on, I can do this. It is going to be Stephanie first again. And so Stephanie, so do you support programming? Because I think this sounds a little bit like maybe some of that alternative agenda. And I'm curious because this is something that we're seeing play out all throughout the United States. Do you support programming that includes diversity, equity, and inclusion to the students and teachers and families in Deer Valley Unified School District. So the question again is, do you support diversity, equity, and inclusion programming to the DVUSD School District? And Stephanie, you're going to go ahead and go first on this one.
Yeah, it's a question that's been a major discussion. I also feel like it's also being diverted. I feel like we have students who, we have parents who are using the term, I imagine where you're going with this is this critical race theory, CRT in our schools. Deer Valley does not teach CRT. It is a collegiate level course that is obviously chosen when a student goes to college. If they want to take that course, then they can. I am very much inclusive of all students. As I said, when I started tonight, I believe that all students have a right to learn no matter their background or gender. And so I do believe in the diversity. I don't want, when we begin to pull away and pick at what we know to have happened in history, if we start to take away from that, then we do lose that. History teaches us. I don't want to see that happen, but I also, if there are parents out there that feel that what is being taught in the schools is something when it comes to teaching about diversity or what has happened in the past historically, if they want to pull their student from that particular lesson or multiple lessons, that's fine. But as a parent myself, it's really important that my children, my daughters learn about that. And I just want to make sure that that history is not repeated and that we really focus on teaching what happened, what goes on. And again, if parents have a severe problem with that, then they are more than welcome. And there should, maybe be a way for them to pull their child if they want to. I personally see it as a disservice, but that's, as parents, you do get to make sure they are your children. So if you feel like that's something you don't want them to be learning about, then by all means, they should have the right to have that, their child not participate.
Great, thank you for that. And the same question goes to you, Mr. Beckman. Do you support programming that includes diversity, equity, and inclusion to the folks at DVUSD?
I do, and I'm going to answer that question with a personal experience. I grew up in a very small town in Michigan. My high school had just over 800 students, not in a grade total. When I left Michigan, I moved directly to California, San Francisco of all places, and it was a huge culture shock. I had not met a wide diversity of people. So to move to a major city and experience that was really life-changing for me, and helped show me that other cultures and backgrounds and walks of life make America what it is. We by learning the different cultures and celebrations and participating in different ways, we can really coexist really well together. And that's what being American is all about, is coexisting. And we can agree to disagree on certain topics, but we have to understand each other. And learning about diversity and inclusion is part of that. And making sure that we're helping to uplift historically marginalized groups. Everybody has the right to education. Everybody has the right to learn and have the opportunity to be successful. And in order to do that, we have to teach a little bit of diversity in that process.
Great, thank you for that. And that'll bring me, I think, to the next question, the one that our members probably care the most about. I heard you talk about the diversity of ideas and ideologies and even religion. So what role, if any, should religion play in our public schools? And this time we're going to start with Craig, What role, if any, should religion play in our public schools, Mr. Beckman?
So the First Amendment gives us the right to freedom of religion and for separation of church and state as well. So I fully support students participating in religious activities as long as they don't interfere with what's going on in the classroom. I fully support teachers participating in religious activities as long as they aren't forcing it upon the students. But I do not believe that we should be using our religious convictions to make our decisions. I'm cool with our First Amendment rights, and I'll fight for that for any student, regardless of what they're trying to participate in. But that means all other religious groups, student clubs, GSA groups, and other activities that are protected by the First Amendment and Title IX must also be respected. So I believe that religion shouldn't play any part whatsoever in public schools. I think that we should not be using our religious and personal beliefs to determine policy. We should not have religious-based curriculums in our classroom. And staff pushing religious agenda on our students isn't okay. We shouldn't define our curriculum based on religious beliefs. Like Stephanie said a few minutes ago, like if your family has a religious belief that makes you not want to participate in a certain topic of discussion or curriculum, that's fine. It's your right to excuse your child from that. And I believe that we should allow parents to excuse their children from curriculum that they don't find appropriate for their kids without being bullied or harassed for being excused for it. But we really shouldn't be pulling curriculum from 32,000 students because of a group that has particular beliefs.
Great. Same question to you, Stephanie. What role, if any, should religion play in our public schools?
Yeah, I can pretty much piggyback on what Craig had to say. I believe in the separation of church and state. So therefore, I do not believe that religion should play a role in public education. And also to add to what Craig said, I don't feel that teachers should be pushing that on their children, that other students should be pushing that on other students. It's kind of a simple answer for me. It's public education. So it's not, if I chose to have my child receive a religious education, then that would be a choice that I would make, and I would send them to a school that supported that. But when it comes to public education, that's not what it's about. So.
Great, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. And then this time, Stephanie is going to go ahead and go first. This also kind of goes along the same lines, I feel like. There's been a whole bunch of controversy lately about comprehensive sex ed, and certainly we're seeing some of these decisions come down from the Supreme Court. Do you support programming that includes comprehensive, scientifically fact-based sexual education for our students? So do you support programming that includes comprehensive sex ed, otherwise known as CSE, for the students in Deer Valley Unified School District? And make sure you're unmuted, Stephanie.
Sorry about that. Comprehensive sex education covers a range of topics, I think, to improve the lives of our young people, our youth, through sex education that is medically accurate, age appropriate, inclusive, trauma informed, and culturally affirming. It's a positive thing. This can include topics that are related to, human development, relationship, interpersonal skills, sexual behavior, sexual health, society and culture, such as gender roles and diversity that we have, sexuality in the media even. I also believe that, I will go back to what I said for the other topic in regards to lessons, that if parents are not comfortable with their child being taught that information and they don't think that that's something they want their child to learn, then they can pull their child and remove that from that program. But we can't remove programs like this. My daughter already took health as a freshman and learned a tremendous amount of information that, you know, as a parent is really helpful, and it helps kind of cover it, and it comes from more than just one person. I think naturally students are going to seek out information anyway. So I do think that for the majority, and being in public education, for the majority, we have a responsibility to teach the right information and the healthy information, and not the information that's out there that they can just easily find on the internet that may or may not be accurate. So I do believe that we need to be offering health education to our students. But again, I will add that that's up to a parent's choice as well.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. Same question to you, Craig. Do you support programming that includes comprehensive sex ed in DVUSD?
Sure. So I believe that any curriculum, including sex education, needs to be age appropriate. We need to be mindful of the language we use. The way we present it matters. And I also believe that parents and students have a right to choose to be excluded from this or any other curriculum they find inappropriate for their family, and to do so without judgment, punishment, or bullying. But I believe that every student has the right to have a great understanding of their anatomy, changes their bodies go through, sexual wellness, and what safe sex means. Whether you like it or not, it's unreasonable to believe that all students will practice abstinence. We've tried it for hundreds of years and it just doesn't work. So in order to prevent unwanted pregnancies, the spread of STDs and STIs, and make for healthy adult relationships, our students need proper sex education. At the end of the day, sex is part of life as an adult. If we're truly focused on preparing our students for real life, a comprehensive understanding of their bodies, the impacts of sex and society are necessary to their success in real life.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. All right, let's go on to, speaking of some of these things that we see play out at the school board, this past legislative session, we saw a number of education / school focused bills become law. Which of these bills gave you the most concern, and how will you handle its implementation as a board member? We're going to start with Craig, and I'll repeat the question. So this past legislative session, we saw a number of education focused bills become law. Which of these bills gave you the most concern, and how will you handle its implementation as a board member?
Can I have like an hour on this one?
Sorry, no. 2 minutes.
I see serious problems with HB 2853. Arizona voters have made it very clear that they didn't want the ESA programs expanded universally, and this bill does exactly that. Private and charter schools will now have the ability to receive taxpayer dollars taken away from public schools, and they have much less accountability. When a school is able to violate equal rights, ignore Title IX protections, and exclude students based on their special needs, they shouldn't be taking away from public programs that are required to meet those standards and provide those services. This isn't the first time that the AZ legislature overrode the will of the people this year. They worked diligently to throw out Prop 208 and keep the AEL in place. Legislatures have made it obvious that they don't support the will of the people, nor do they truly care about public education. The sheer amount of anti-teacher and anti-education bills this year has made it super clear. SB 1159 is one of the ones that I'm most concerned about, that we can have a direct impact on. Basically, it allows anybody who completes a teacher prep program to receive a teaching certificate. And it sends the message that it's easy to teach and that anyone can do it. And that's not even remotely accurate. We should be putting a focus in how we will overcome this on the board is by putting a focus on how we can attract and retain well-qualified teachers and staff in our districts, giving our students the resources and instruction they need to be successful. When Arizona has some of the worst pay in the country for educators, it is absolutely unreasonable to think that this bill is going to attract great educators for our classrooms. We don't need to just fill seats. We need qualified educators who are going to be the best teachers for our students. And as a board member, I will continue to advocate to make sure that we're hiring qualified teachers in our district, not just anybody with a teaching certificate.
Great. Same question to you, Stephanie, and I'll state it again. So this past legislative session, we saw a number of education / school focused bills become law. Which of these bills gave you most concern, and how will you handle its implementation as a board member?
Yes, my answer is very similar to Craig's as well. It would definitely be HB 2583, via voucher expansion. We had $5.3 billion that was available for our public education. It could have been used for public education expansion. It could have helped support special education in other areas, teacher raises. Vouchers have already deferred every year approximately $350 million from our public school funding just to private schools every single year. And they don't make it too complicated for families to be able to obtain those. I've talked with families who are voucher families, and I am familiar with that. The problem I have is that it takes away from public education, which is why I have such a hard time with this bill. The other reason I have such a hard time with this bill is that the voters already voted against it. And it was as if no one was listening and had our right to vote is everything. And when you take that away and then just go behind voters' backs and create another, a bill to pass in so many words, that's the exact same thing that we already voted down. It's not acceptable. Our taxpayers, we don't know how our taxpayers are being used when they go to these vouchers, because they're not accountable for anything. Our public schools are accountable for everything. We have to use measurements and testing and all these things to be able to prove that we need funding for this and for that. But when vouchers are used, we don't know. They just go, and we don't know if the students' needs are being met. There's no financial or academic accountability for it. And as a state, Arizona already spends the least per child in the entire nation. And our distribution of state funds is also the least equitable anywhere. So our state needs to invest in local public schools, and this does not do that. When 95% of our children are attending public schools, that needs to be the focus when it comes to our legislation. So this was not the time to divert money that is desperately needed for education right now. Again, we had $5.3 billion sitting there, and a huge chunk of it went towards the expansion of vouchers. And it's extremely disappointing to me. It's extremely disappointing that that passed. I'm not surprised, but it's frightening, and I am really worried about our public education when the money just keeps being taken away continuously in the state of Arizona.
Thank you for that, Ms. Simichek. I appreciate you. And sorry, it's hard for me to interrupt people, and especially when we've only got two, so I'll do better. This next question, we're going to go ahead and start with Stephanie. Let's see. This is one of my favorite questions. What role should standardized testing play in driving school programming and policies? So I'll repeat it again, and we're going to start with Ms. Simichek this time. What role should standardized testing play in driving school programming and policies? And make sure you're muted, Ms. Simichek. I mean, unmuted. You know what I meant.
I do. Okay, sorry about that. I think it plays a huge role in our current teaching. And sometimes I'm not necessarily thinking that's the level of being, it's almost to the point that it can be somewhat detrimental to actual learning at times. Again, we are a huge district. We have to have ways to measure where our students are at and what they're doing and if we are on track. And so I can't say that standardized testing needs to be just completely thrown out, because in a smaller district where you can measure your students easier, that might be possible. But I do think that we do being so large, we have to have a way to measure. That being said, students are focused on the test oftentimes when we come to this standardized testing rather than what they're actually learning. And that's frightening to me. Also, we often forget, but as a teacher myself in the past and continue to substitute, I see how kids learn differently. And many are not great test takers. And my concern with standardized testing is that it doesn't take into account all the types of learners that we have. So we have hands-on learners, and we have visual learners, and we have learners that can write and take tests easily or really good at multiple choice, but maybe way better at writing essays. And standardized testing doesn't necessarily take that all into account. And I would also like to add, and I've talked with Craig about this, is that, you know, there's a little bit of, I think when we look back on when we were in high school, we had, you know, home economics, and we had these classes that really allowed us to just be prepared for the real world. And I am concerned that we are lacking in this department, and our kids, you know, don't have the ability to cook a meal or to sew something, or you know, we don't really balance checkbooks these days with their debit cards, but we need to be able to understand how money works and how, when you get a credit card, how does that work? It's something I've been talking with my daughter about. And I would love to be able to see more of these types of classes, how to build a resume when you go out for your first job, take effect as well. Sorry.
Great. No, you're fine. That's great. Thank you so much. So same question goes to you, Mr. Beckman. What role should standardized play in driving school programming and policies?
Yeah, so I mean, the fact of the matter is we can't get around standardized testing. It is required by the state. It's where our funding comes through. But we should be driving towards proficiency and mastery, not test scores. Our students need to leave school prepared for the real world, and a standardized test isn't going to do that. We need to focus more on, we do need to focus on the standardized testing because it is required by the state and it is how we get our funding, but we also need to focus on, like Stephanie said, more life-based skills, financial literacy. I have a big understanding about us being a world culture and a world economy now. And I think our curriculum team works really hard to provide excellent resources to our students. And I believe in preparing our students for life. The state mandated curriculum and standardized testing only puts a small dent in that mission. The modern world is a heck of a lot more than ABCs and 1, 2, 3s these days. So in addition to the constant refinement of our current curriculum, I would advocate for things like financial literacy training, comprehensive technology programs, teaching communication skills, global studies, critical thinking skills, which is much needed in our society right now, life skills, and much more. And I think we need to empower our teachers with the curriculum they need to give our students a path to success right out of high school, not just focus on standardized testing.
Sorry about that. I was looking at my next question. Okay. Thank you for your answers on that one. And this time we're going to start with you, Craig. Gosh, I really hate to keep asking this question, but on 4th of July, we saw yet another mass shooting here in the United States. And tragically, a month and a half ago, we saw what happened at a school in Uvalde, Texas. So given the recent events in Uvalde and in schools across the United States, unfortunately, what do you think needs to be done with regards to stopping school shootings, and what role can school boards play to keep kids and staff safe? So I'll repeat the question, and this time it's going to Craig first. Given the recent events in Uvalde and everywhere else in this country, what do you think needs to be done with regards to stopping school shootings, and what role can school boards play to keep kids and staff safe?
Anything, something. I was in middle school when Columbine hit. We're 23 years later and we've done nothing. I don't have an answer. I don't have, I wish I had a magic wand that I could wave and prevent any child from being harmed anywhere, but it doesn't exist. But what we can do as a community, as in parents, is advocate for our children and advocate for change and put pressure on our legislatures to do anything, because we haven't done anything. And our children continue to suffer because of it. On the school board level, I think that what we can do is we can make sure that our emergency policies are consistent throughout the district. I think that we can make sure that we're working with local law enforcement and other officials to ensure that they are comprehensive and that they are the best they can be. But I can't stop somebody from committing a horrendous act. I think we can be preventative. I think we can add, a better student to counselor and social worker ratio. I think we could be more proactive in identifying students that are at risk and making sure that they get the help that they need. But yeah, I mean, this one's tough. It's traumatic and it's hard to deal with and know that this is going on in our society. We have to come together as a country and as a society and figure out a solution, because what we're doing right now isn't working.
Great. Yeah. Same question to you, Ms. Simachek. So given the recent events in Uvalde, Texas, what do you think needs to be done with regards to stopping school shootings, and what role can school boards play to keep kids and staff safe?
Yeah, I will definitely agree with Craig. We have to do something. We're not doing anything at all. What I would like to talk about a little bit is some suggestions that have been brought up that, maybe teachers need to be armed, or we maybe need to have SROs in our schools, but I don't think that solves the problem. And having been a teacher, there's no way I would ever feel comfortable carrying a gun. I would throw my body in front of a child before I ever fired a gun to protect them. There are 14 million students who currently attend schools that have a campus officer, but yet they do not have a school counselor. They do not have a school nurse. They don't have a psychologist or even a social worker. And I feel like we can't get to the root of these problems. I think we can all agree that there's some trouble of a person who feels that they need to, this is their last resort, and to go into a school and take out innocent lives. But when we have resources for our students, such as psychologists and social workers, to be able to help them, then we can hopefully get more to the root of what's going on and help and support them before they find that this is their last result. And we have a major problem with some schools, we share counselors with other schools, we share nurses. No, that should not be allowed. And this goes back to the same with our teachers, is that we have to be able to offer a livable wage. We have to be able to focus on increasing these jobs in our schools so that we can support our students and we can support our teachers. But arming them and adding police officers to schools is not going to be the solution. We have to get to the root of the problem. And we clearly know this is a mental health thing. So as a school board, my goal would be to really focus on increasing those types of jobs and funding for those jobs from our state.
Great, thank you. I want to make sure that any of you who are attending the webinar, please feel free, because we're getting to the phase now where we're going to open it up to audience questions. We have a great attendance tonight, so I know that there's likely a lot of people who are coming here from the Deer Valley Unified School District, or maybe you're just an interested party close to the area or somewhere in the state. Or maybe you just realize that our school board really is the heart of our democracy. So please, if you have a question to give to ask our school board candidates, please throw them up into the chat or into the Q&A. I do have a comment coming from somebody on Facebook, from Kirsten. She says, check moms demand action for gun reform sources. Research shows investing in mental health in schools helps. So I just wanted to go ahead and add that from the Facebook folks. Let's see. Okay, another one of my favorite questions. So, speaking about mental health and kids who maybe either fly under the radar or need those extra supports, what approach should schools and districts have with regards to student discipline? So this question will go to Ms. Semichek. What approach should schools and districts have with regards to school discipline?
I think that we really need to allow for a more cooperative effort between teachers and parents, working together to establish guidelines and boundaries that we can mutually agree on and benefit for all of our pupils. Allowing teachers to also maximize their teaching abilities, because I don't want to say that students get away with things that they may have not gotten away with in the past, but I do feel that our teachers are not being recognized as a human that needs to be respected, an elder. I feel that if we are able to, maybe as a school board, create some teams where we can have parents and teachers working together, where we can hear both sides and concerns of what's going on, then maybe we can work together to come to some solutions. It's very easy, I feel like, for people to say that, just to be on social media or to make all these statements, and yet when it comes down to volunteering or being a part of these teams, they don't show up. And we need to work on that. We are a huge district. I've said this multiple times, but we also are a community, and when our community comes together and works together, I really feel like amazing things can happen. And I really think that we need to start working as a collaborative team with our teachers and our parents together to come up with some solutions of what we feel is appropriate for discipline.
Great. Same question goes to you, Craig. What approach should schools and districts have with regards to student discipline?
Yeah, I think we could start by making sure that our expectations of students on behavior and discipline is consistent throughout the district. I think when it comes to student safety and behavior, that isn't something we should leave open to interpretation. We should have a minimal amount of discipline actions. We should be getting the parents involved, involving counselors and social workers. Students are there to be educated. And whatever disciplinary actions are taken, they need to be transparent, and they need to be identified that these are the repercussions for this offense before the offense takes place. We need examples of what gets you suspended, what gets you expelled, what gets you detention. It should follow written procedures and be unified amongst all schools, and all students should be treated equal in those actions.
Great. And we're just a little bit early right now, but I do feel like we have a couple of questions coming in from the audience, and I feel like we are ready to move on to some of the audience questions. So we've got a couple that are trickling in. I'm going to go ahead and take the first one from our Q&A. This is from Anonymous. And the question is, and this will be for you, Mr. Beckman, first, if COVID numbers spike, and I feel like now we could probably, it may not be COVID, who knows what it's going to be next, but, and I don't want to take anonymous attendees' words out of context or anything, but if we see numbers spike, what is your stance on mandatory masks, going to online schooling, and making the COVID vaccine mandatory? So I'll repeat that question, and we're going to start with Mr. Beckman first. If COVID numbers spike, and I do feel like at this point, COVID could be replaced with monkeypox or any other thing, what is your stance on mandatory masks, going to online schooling, and making a vaccine mandatory?
That's a tough one. I believe in science. I think that it has been highly politicized over the last couple of years. I would have to defer to the experts on this matter, whether they were right or wrong when the CDC and the Arizona Department of Health instructed us to mask up and close schools. They were trying to do the best they could with the information that they had. Had things gone a different direction, we would have been in a better place protecting our students. And when it comes down to it, that's what really matters. That being said, I would do everything I could to keep our students in classroom. I think that there is problems that arise with taking kids and putting them virtual. So anything we could do to prevent that, and if that includes wearing masks, if that's what's being instructed by our Department of Health Services and doctors and scientists all over the country, I'm going to have to defer to that. I would do everything in my power to keep our students safe, and I have to rely on the experts. I'm not a scientist, I'm not an epidemiologist, neither is 99.999% of anybody else in the district. So you can be upset with the policy, but ultimately our job is to keep students safe. And if we're being told that that's how we do it, that's how we do it.
Great. Same question goes to you, Stephanie. If COVID or any other pandemic spikes, what is your stance on mandatory masks, going to online schooling, and making the COVID vaccine mandatory?
Yeah, I think similar to Craig, I would have to agree. I'd have to rely on the experts for that information. I'm not sure if that's something that I don't have a medical background to decide. I agree with science as well. There's back and forth, masks work, masks don't. If we were advised that that was a way to help protect our children, I would certainly go that direction. I don't know that you can necessarily mandate a vaccine on children, especially because there are students who have reasons why they cannot get vaccinated. It is again a parent's choice. It's a parent's choice now with all the other vaccines. I mean, they can sign off on the reason why their kids are not vaccinated, but they can still currently attend school without being vaccinated. That is a parent's choice. But given what we have seen and what we have seen that has worked, it's been a long 2+ years of watching all of this pan out. We did not know what was happening at times, but I think in general, we can say that when we are sick and we wear a mask and we distance ourselves from each other, the numbers do go down. I strongly agree, though, that working in having children in the classroom is extremely important. I've noticed being back in the classroom that a lot of teachers have kind of, in a way, sort of prepared in case something were to happen again, where they're a little bit more, they are relying on the computers and such, which I have my opinions about, but I also feel like they are just kind of preparing themselves for the future if something were like this to happen again. So they might have the tools and ability to maybe implement online learning stronger. But again, there's no way to, I mean, the best way to learn obviously is for kids to be in the classroom, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay, and I'm actually going to go back because I see you raising your hand, Craig. There is a question coming from Cindy that says she would like to. He didn't answer about the mandatory vaccination. Can you ask again? So would you mandate vaccinations for students?
Sure. I don't love the idea of mandating anything. We are a free country. If you choose not to get vaccinated, so be it. The governing board at any school in the state of Arizona does not mandate vaccines. They cannot mandate vaccines. That's not our job. We're not able to make that decision. That comes from the state. That's coming from the Department of Education and Arizona Health Services. We don't make that decision. We can't advocate for that decision. That comes from a way higher pay grade than the school board. I'd also like to kind of add on to my discussion about the masks and point out that when masks were implemented in Deer Valley, they were mandatory at the state level. That is not, for the most part, that is not a decision that the school board made. They were following state mandates. And you can argue all day long whether that was a law or a mandate or if it was constitutional, but at the end of the day, our school board made the decisions that were being brought down from the top and implementing what they were told to implement.
Okay, so I think we've asked and answered that one. We've got a few coming in. This is great. I'm really excited to see the engagement coming in from the audience. Let me see. I kind of feel like this one was asked and answered, but let's go ahead and ask it anyway. And I'm going to give this to both of you. Even though Craig, you followed up on that one, I think we're going to be starting with Stephanie on this one. So Melissa from the audience says, Craig, I agree with your, and this is going to go to both of you. I agree with your stance on student inclusion. Do you feel that CRT should be taught in our district, Deer Valley Unified?
I'm muted. I feel like I kind of touched on this already. CRT is a hot topic. It's an acronym that gets thrown around a lot. And I feel like people, like I said before, it's a collegiate level course. It is not something that Deer Valley currently uses in its education curriculum. It's not. Now, I think that sometimes when people mention CRT, I'm not sure if they have, if they're thinking of something else, but I can tell you that it's not something that is taught in this district, and it is something that is taught by choice when you attend college. So I would like to know probably a little bit more information if there's some more specific topic that that person is wanting to know about. That would be more helpful than just this kind of blanket CRT acronym.
Jeannie, you're muted.
I know, yeah, I know. I'm like, that's my goal in life, is to not start talking while I'm muted, but thank you for reminding me. So the same question is going to go to you, coming from from Cindy. Do you feel that CRT should be taught in our district? No, that is actually from Melissa. Wait, no, from Cindy. I'm sorry.
So yeah, as Stephanie said, CRT is a collegiate level course. It's designed to look at prejudice and biases and processes, most often being applied to the judicial system. It's an advanced analysis, and I don't believe that it is appropriate for the K through 12 public education setting. But what I will say is that from a historical perspective, there are always going to be topics from the past that could make for uncomfortable discussions. Nobody is excited to discuss slavery or the Holocaust or other atrocities that have taken place around the world, and unfortunately continue to take place. But I believe that it's important that our educators are given the opportunity to teach and foster discussion around these events in an appropriate manner. We need to be able to facilitate these lessons in a way that brings attention to problematic events without making an individual race, religion, or any other identifying social characteristic feel bad about themselves for something they didn't participate in. And I don't think that any teacher in their right mind is out there doing that. I don't think it exists. A philosopher once wrote, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. You're probably more familiar with the modernization of this quote, which is those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. And it applies today more than ever. It's important to learn about some of these topics and events so that we don't return to a time where we're not treating people equally, or that it's acceptable not to treat people equally. We need to find ways to do this that are appropriate in the K through 12 setting. And I do appreciate that we are bringing more diversity into history, and looking at it from a different perspective. It's not just what white Americans went through during slavery. It's what slaves that were brought over, what did they go through? And having that ability to look at life and historical events from a different perspective is very important, because we learn so much from different perspectives.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, boy, this is great. I am so excited because, sometimes we have questions that trickle in and sometimes we don't have any at all. And sometimes we have too many, but these are really thoughtful questions. And so I want to make sure that I honor everybody. And I'm also monitoring the Facebook chat, and I'll get to some of those. We did answer the question about who else is running in the district. You can refer to that in the webinar format. You can refer to that in the Facebook. There is a crowded field here for only 2 four-year seats. So by all means, take a look at who is running in your district so that you know who to choose from. Again, we're grateful for the 2 of you for showing up. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the chat. See, this is why maybe going forward, Lindsay, I need to make sure that I say, just do it in the chat because it's too much to keep track of. But there's been a couple questions coming now about standards-based grading. Now, my own background is as an educator and as a board member, I'm familiar with standards-based grading. So I just want to kind of maybe give a quick primer about what that is. And the state of Arizona, the Arizona Department of Education adopts standards for every grade level on every content area from K through 12. So when we talk about standards-based grading, that's what we're saying. Like there's a standard, a 3rd grader will be able to read proficiently at a 3rd grade level. We'll be able to use, let's say, imagery or metaphors and similes. And so that's what standards-based grading is. But there are a couple questions in here, and I'm just going to go ahead and read both of them as I go on. So thoughts about standards-based grading. And this one, we're going to start with Craig first. And then Melissa asks, for both candidates, the school board is currently debating the merits and use of standards-based grading. What is your understanding of standards-based grading? And is this something you want our schools to continue transitioning to? So Craig, you're going to go first. The school board is currently debating the merits and use of standards-based grading. What is your understanding of standards-based grading? And is this something you want our schools to continue transitioning to?
Sure. So I believe in standards-based grading. I think that the concept of it is phenomenal. You're taking the behavior element out of a child's grade, and you're really focusing on their proficiency and their mastery. That being said, I think that DVUSD has failed in their implementation of standards-based grading. Watching the recent board meetings, talking with parents, there are some that support it, and I understand why, because it is a great way of doing things, but it was implemented very poorly. Teachers were not taught up to the standard that they should have been. Parents, there wasn't enough transparency with parents and students. And right now we're in a situation where we've got a lot of parents upset about this. And I do not believe that we should be continuing the implementation. I think we should be pausing the implementation and looking at how we rolled it out and where our gaps and our failures were, and fixing those before we affect another 32 schools with this system. I think that we need to educate parents, we need to educate teachers. We focus too much on the switch from the grade number, or the letter grade to the number, instead of focusing on the mentality of standards-based grading. And I think that's where the huge failure was. So no, I don't support the current rollout. I think we have a lot of problems that we need to fix before we continue to roll it out to other schools.
Great. Thank you, Craig. So same question to you, Stephanie. Let me get back to it. What is your understanding of standards-based grading? And is this something you want our schools to continue transitioning to?
Yeah. When my daughter was in 6th grade, Norterra Canyon turned to a IB middle school test school, which was based off of less letter grades and more of a standard space. At that point, it was 1 through 8, I believe. And now we're working with a 1 through 4 standard-based grading system. I too, along with Craig, I do not believe that it was implemented the best way possible. I really feel like there were way too many unanswered questions by parents and by staff before the 9 test schools began the implementation. I would vote for putting a pause on it for now. I think especially after COVID, we need to focus on getting our children to where they need to be academically before we introduce something new that too many people have questions and concerns about. I just don't think it's the right time. And I think there's just too many questions and people don't have the answers for them. I've watched the last 2 board meetings where this was heavily discussed, because it is a very hot topic for Deer Valley right now. And I would say we definitely need to pause on it. And really, there's other things we need to be focusing on before we implement something that is such a hot topic of conversation for our families, when we need to be more concerned with where our students are at academically. And I would like to add real quick too, as a teacher, I never graded based off of behavior. The standard-based grading for Arizona has existed for quite some time now. Grades have always been graded based on standards. It was a letter grade or a percentage, but nowhere, unless you flipped over to the back of the report card, you could talk about where a student might be behavior-wise, or where they needed to work on with their penmanship, but it never had ever affected their GPA.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's see. This question I'm going to go ahead and take from our Q&A. This one comes from Katie Mae Smith. And it says, 2 of the candidates running for Arizona superintendent are talking about teachers brainwashing, these are her quotes, brainwashing and indoctrinating students. What will you do to improve the relationship between teachers and parents to make parents feel like they know what's happening in the classroom? So again, and this one will go to Stephanie first. Two of the candidates, boy, I'm trying to think of who. We got Tom Horn, whose signs I see all over the place saying stop CRT, Sherry Sapir. Not sure if they're talking about Michelle Udall here, but two of the candidates running for Arizona superintendent are talking about teachers brainwashing and indoctrinating students. What will you do to improve the relationship between teachers and parents to make parents feel like they know what's happening in the classroom? And Stephanie, you get to go first on this one.
Okay. The beauty of being a substitute teacher is that I do get to go through many of our Deer Valley schools and be a part of them and build connections with our students and teachers there. And I will be honest, I have not witnessed that occurring at all, brainwashing of our students. I think that it only is language that creates more of a separation between our students and our teachers. And as I mentioned before, I would really like to be able to get groups together that would like to, and teachers already have so much on their plate. So to ask them to do this is definitely a lot. Families are very, very busy. To ask families to do this is a lot, but we need to work together as a community and stop this. It's just not something that I have witnessed in the classroom. And I can honestly say that as a teacher and both a substitute, having gone to many different schools throughout our district, I have never witnessed teachers brainwashing children to their beliefs. I just don't. I don't think that that's teachers have a servant's heart. You know, they don't do it for the money. They do it because they care about the kids. They don't do it because they want to brainwash and push their ideas on them. They want kids to learn and to grow. And I just, it's disappointing actually to hear that, especially from a teacher's perspective. So
great, thank you so much. Same question goes to you. About, you know, superintendent candidates brainwashing, indoctrinating. What will you do to improve the relationship between teachers and parents to make parents feel like they know what's happening in the classroom? Craig?
Sure. I think Stephanie said it perfectly, that this isn't happening in the classrooms. This is part of the reason that we're hemorrhaging teachers. Teachers don't do this for the money. There's no money in it. They do it because they're passionate, and when they're constantly attacked, eventually their passion for educating our children is outweighed by the mental health anguish that they're experiencing from these attacks. But what I will do as a board member to improve this is really make sure that we're streamlining communications. Pretty much everything that I have experienced that parents are upset about in Deer Valley doesn't necessarily come down to the policy. It comes down to the level of communication and how it was presented. I think the calendar situation was a great example of that, where the district pushed out this accelerated calendar and sent out a survey to all the parents, but they didn't sell the parents on what the benefits of the advanced calendar were, the accelerated calendar were. So the parents looked at it and they had all these questions and they were already mad. They were mad before the vote even came up. They were mad before it was implemented. They were mad before they were able to hear the district out. So making sure that we're communicating at every single level, that our district is communicating to our teachers so they know the policies, that our teachers are communicating to the parents, district is communicating to the parents in a way that makes sense. I have a background in communications, marketing and communications. So, you know, my idea is to make 3-minute videos explaining a policy change instead of burying that policy change in a 30-paragraph web page or a 15-paragraph email where parents aren't going to read it. Give them a medium that they can comprehend very quickly and understand all the significant points of the messaging. We have to improve our communication at all levels. That is how we're going to repair our relationships with parents, teachers, admin, all of our stakeholders.
And I feel like this is a very natural segue to another question. I will come back to the other question that I see on the Q&A here, but this is a great question, especially considering the one that we just had. What are the two, and this is going to go to you, Craig, what are the two main things that you'd like to see Deer Valley Unified School District change or implement to improve communication policy? Great question. This is coming from Google Pixel 3X user. So what are the two main things you'd like to see DV change or implement to improve its communication policy? Craig first.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mentioned earlier that I've spent the last almost 2 years managing a parents and guardians group. We have like 5,000 parents in our group. And I've been taking information from the district and making sure that our parents see it and hear it in a way that they can understand it. And I try to be as nonpartisan as possible in that delivery. But it shouldn't take a volunteer to make sure that our parents are informed. We have to have standardized communications to make sure that we're reaching all of the parents. We have so many different mediums out there. Instead of using, we can use Facebook for advertising the successes of the district, but we can also use the district Facebook page to push out some of the policy changes. We can be doing videos that make it short and sweet and put a face behind that policy change. As Americans, we have very, very short attention spans these days. Everything is a 30-second or a 3-minute video. Let's utilize those mediums to make sure that our parents are informed and they know the decisions that are being made for their children so they can be involved in that decision-making process. We need to make sure that we contact them and let them know that we're adopting curriculum and that they can review it, and this is how to review it. We need to let them know what's happening at the state legislature so they can weigh in and say, I like this for my community or I don't. There are so many opportunities for communication that could benefit our student population and our parents, and we're not doing it. And that's something that I definitely hope to bring to the board with my background.
Great. Same question goes to you, Stephanie. The two main things that you'd like to see Deer Valley Unified School District change or implement to improve communication policy.
Yeah, just a personal experience of mine when the standard-based grading came out as the test schools. Last year, both my children, totally different schools, high school and elementary, were part of that test program. Receiving an email that's full of a bunch of links that I have to click on to go through, which then leads me to a manual that I have to try to decipher on my own what that means. I was mostly looking at it because I was worried about how my high schooler's GPA was going to transfer on her college credits. It was nearly impossible, and I kind of thought I got it. And so when people started asking me about standards-based grading, I was like, okay, well, it's not too bad, because I sat and I went through this manual. But those last two meetings that I watched, I learned so much more as a parent and as a school board, running for school board nominee. There's got to be a better way to communicate it. And like Craig said, I think through videos and being able to have quick ways that parents and guardians can be able to see an implementation of something new, or in a very quick way. Not only do we have shorter attention spans, we just don't have a whole lot of time. And so to have to dig through all of this information that someone really took a long time to type out and put together, they could have been solved very easily. So I would like to see less of the constant verbiage and long emails with links embedded in those to click on and read more and go through this whole path of trying to figure it out. And I'd like to see more direct videos and discussions that way.
Great. Thank you so much. And again, I'm really sorting through here and making sure that I honor everybody's questions here. Thank you to the individual who put out, oh, that was Lindsay. Thank you, Lindsay, for putting out the other candidates' names. And we just have a few more questions left. I do feel like we've kind of answered the standards-based grading question, but because we're still kind of talking about that, it sounds to me like this is a large district. Deer Valley Unified is a large district. My experience, I was in a district where we had 9 schools and it's sometimes 8 because others were under construction. You all have a rather large district. You know, you've talked about the numbers, you've talked about the number of schools, and the standards-based grading does seem to be something that keeps coming up. And it sounds to me like, based on the questions, that there are that they implemented the standards-based grading in 9 schools currently. And so I'm going to go ahead and condense. This is from Google Pixel 3 XL user, as well as somebody in the audience forum named Cindy. And so they're asking basically, what would you do with the 9 schools that have implemented, standards-based grading? Would you go back to the old way? Would you keep it as is, even though it's not working? And so, because Stephanie closed us out last time, that means Stephanie's going to go first this time. Do you think that it should just keep going, see what happens, or go back to the old way, keep it back as if it as is, even though it's not working? And again, this is Cindy's opinion. I don't know if it's working or not, but how do you feel about the implementation? Would you continue it, Stephanie?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I'm not excited about the implementation of it. I don't think it was rolled out the best way it could have been. I know that it's really hard to invest in something and then to have to stop and say, wait, hold on, we need to pause here and go back. But I am definitely not opposed to going back to how things were. I'm very concerned that we are going to lose even more teachers based off the standard-based grading, because it's one more thing we are adding to their plate. Like I said before, we are just getting through 2 years plus of COVID. We have so much we need to work through that adding a standard-based grading to me just doesn't seem like a priority. And I think that our teachers would feel, and I can't speak for every teacher, I can only speak for the ones I've personally spoken to directly, but I do know that it is a challenge for them. It's something else on their plate that they're having to learn again, with everything else that's going on. And they really, really, truly, from that heart of a teacher, want to make sure their kids are learning and that they are, learning what they need to be learning. Even as simple as things as writing their name and getting that down before we implement a standard-based grading. I'm not saying just scrap the whole thing. I'm just saying we need to put it on pause right now and really focus on our students and our teachers. This also has a lot to do with mental health as well. And I really do not want to risk losing more teachers because we've decided to implement a standard-based, this grading program, that there are still way too many questions that are not answered. And I know that might not be what a lot of people want to hear, but that's how I do feel about that. I feel like we just need to pause. And then for the 9 schools, there were 9 more, I believe, that we're going to be starting this fall. They are going to pause those. That's my understanding. As for the 9 schools that are in it now, I do know that Goldwater does already use somewhat of a standard-based grading because they are an IB school, but it still has been delivered in the A through F format. And I think for what we're comfortable with right now and everything we're going through, that we need to keep it that way.
Same question to you, Craig.
Yeah, so I think my biggest concern that I've gotten out of the board meetings about standards-based grading is that a 4 is mastery and a 3 is proficiency, but we're not teaching to mastery, we're teaching to proficiency. And I understand parents' concerns about how that translates come college time and how that's going to affect any kind of grants or money coming in. So I think that we need to probably make sure that we are keeping our high schools in our A through F right now. Even if we do hold the standards-based grading, we need to make sure that we're using letter grades that translate directly to our college applications, our GPAs. We need to it's hard. Like there's so many unanswered questions to be able to say like we need to just nix this whole thing or we need to continue. I definitely wouldn't continue the rollout. But the way that I think it should be done personally is my daughter's in the Spanish immersion program at Union Park. Her grade level, it will always be the first grade level to be Spanish immersion. So she's going into third grade. There's no Spanish immersion in fourth grade. When she goes into fourth grade, there will be no Spanish immersion in fifth grade. She will always be the highest level for Spanish immersion. I think that's how we probably should have rolled out the standards-based grading, because what we did, we shocked the system and we didn't have the time or the energy or the resources to educate all these teachers. So I think we do need to roll some of this back, make sure that we're not affecting any college applications or GPAs for students that are in high school. Again, I think that standards-based grading is a great concept, but it has to be implemented properly, and we've failed at that. So personally, I would probably roll it back and implement it in elementary schools as a test school in the way I just described, if we were to decide to continue to move forward with standards-based grading.
Great, thank you. Okay. It looks like we maybe have about 2 more questions. Well, actually 3, looking at my Facebook here. This one, I'm going to give you a minute each because again, it has to do with CRT. It is a really good question, and it's weird that in 2022 we're actually asking this question. But do you think, and this one's going to go to Craig, do you think referring to enslaved Africans as involuntarily relocated is accurate as in Texas? I think that this one deserves about a minute. So Craig, go ahead and answer that question.
Jeannie, I don't know whether I should laugh or cry at that question. Not because it's a funny question or a sad question, but because that it is even a question that we're asking. It is absolutely inaccurate. People were enslaved. They weren't just involuntarily relocated. They were enslaved. They were forced to work against their will in horrible conditions. I would have a really, really, really hard time with that if that became the Arizona standard. I do believe in following the rule of the law for education, but I would fight against that one through and through. It's just totally inappropriate to rewrite history in that way. These people were enslaved, and there's no getting around that definition. You're muted.
Oh, don't. You're not supposed to call me on that. Yeah. Same question to you, Stephanie. Do you think referring to enslaved Africans as involuntarily relocated is accurate as in Texas?
No, I do not believe that to be accurate at all. And again, like Craig said, I mean, to be asking this question right now, I mean, too quickly we have forgotten. And I don't really feel like I need to go into more detail, except for I just strongly disagree with that statement. I really, they were very much enslaved. They were taken from their homes, they were removed from their families, they were put on ships and sent over. So no, it wasn't just an involuntary relocation.
And I do appreciate the question, Greg. I really do. But again, it goes back to CRT and, people like Tom Horn, who, lists it on his signs and everything. But, that's where we are right now. And it kind of goes along with standards-based grading as well, because if the state is allowed to determine what the standards are, then they could very easily determine that is now going to be the verbiage that we use when teaching our kids. So I do appreciate the question, Greg. I don't want to minimize it, but I do think it's kind of been asked and answered. I have 2 more questions coming from the audience. I'm going to start with this one. And then I actually think that the second one is the perfect opportunity for both of you to kind of give your closing statements to everything. So the first one is coming from Christina Z. And Christina says, in talking with parents at other schools, I have learned each school is very different in how they handle access of services for children and treatment of parents seeking services. How can you help standardize them? And then she comes back with a follow-up, really great question, Christina, meaning access to special ed services, gifted services, etc. So let me repeat it. And we're going to start with Stephanie this time. In talking with parents at other schools, I have learned each school is very different in how they handle access of services for children and treatment of parents seeking services, i.e. special ed gifted services. So how can you help as a school board member to standardize this access and this treatment? Go ahead, Stephanie.
Yes, I definitely, I have seen some standardizedness to it. Having taught at one school and having a child who is on an IEP at a different school, I can say that your administration plays a pretty large role in how things are implemented. And that can either be a plus or a minus. In regards, I know as a parent, you have to continually advocate for your child, whether it be for special education services and getting that IEP or for gifted services. I know that a lot of people, a lot of parents and families who go out to seek gifted services for their kids need to have them tested. I worked very well with my child's prior to even her starting kindergarten to get that ball rolling for her IEP. However, I will tell you, it takes literally close to 10 months to have that completely rolled out. So children currently right now, I feel like unless they went through the developmental preschool program and came in to kindergarten already with an IEP, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about kindergartners and the latter that seek IEP services or need them, and how parents have got to advocate for their children. And unfortunately, not all parents are either comfortable with that or just don't see it. And so it's really concerning. We need our teachers to also be looking at our students and seeing where they need that support, but we have to figure out a way to streamline it faster, because what's happening is our students are losing essentially an entire year where they could have had services because they had to be tested, and then they had to have a review meeting, and then that had to be discussed, and then they had to schedule the next meeting, and it goes on, and then they finally get to, let's say they finally qualify for services. They're not qualifying until the very end of the year. And then you have summer, and you have the loss of summer and retaining information that way. So it's a cycle that it really needs a lot of work, but it also needs a lot of support from our special education department. And so I think a part of that comes from being able to fund our special education programs as best as we can, because that's going to help with our teacher retention. We have definitely not enough teachers for special education. It is teaching in general is a very hard job, but being a special education teacher is 10 times harder. So I don't have an exact answer, except that I would love to be heavily involved in streamlining that program.
Thank you for that, Stephanie. So the same question is going to you. How they handle the access of services for children and treatment of parents seeking services such as special ed and gifted services. How can you help to standardize that? Go ahead, Craig.
I think standardizing it at the district level, for one. Stephanie makes a great point that it is so open to interpretation on what the standards are and what the policies are by the individual campuses. And I do believe in some campus autonomy, but when it comes to students learning and their safety, I don't think there should be autonomy. We need to have district policies that make sure we're treating kids equally, especially those with special needs or differences. These kids have the same passion and a desire to learn. They just need a little bit more help, and we should be giving them everything they need. We're morally obligated as a society to do that. So, I think that working to review and making significant improvements to our special needs programs, I'll advocate for increased pay and support for our special education staff. I know that's one problem that a lot of the campuses have. Last I checked, DVUSD had like 200 open positions for our special needs paraprofessionals and support staff. And the pay is terrible. How we can expect somebody that should be one-on-one with a student to now take 6 or 8 special needs students with varying backgrounds and challenges is beyond me. Like, you can't expect somebody to do that. We're burning our staff out and we cannot replace them. So we have to make changes that better support our special education staff. And it has to come from the district level. Those policies need to change, and we should be helping parents identify. We shouldn't be waiting until parents come to us and say, you know, I think my child has special needs. I got him tested, or I got him or her tested. Teachers and staff are with these students 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I don't want to put more on them, but they can see the writing on the wall in some of these cases where they could be more proactive and help the parents get the testing and the services they need. The school does not suffer from a child having an IEP other than we can't staff it. So let's help our students and make sure that we're giving them the services they need.
Thank you for that. Well, okay, it's 7:47. And I feel like there's just one more question that came in, and then I'm going to let you guys go ahead and close it out. This again comes from Google Pixel 3 XL user. What is the general chain of command if issues arise and you've spoken with the teacher principal? If issue isn't resolved, what are the next steps? Now, this is a good board member question that oftentimes you may not get until you have your onboarding, but it's still a great question. So what is the general chain of command if an issue arises and you've spoken with the teacher principal? If the issue isn't resolved, then what are the next steps? And we're going to start with Craig this time.
Sure. So general chain of command is trying to work things out with the teacher, moving up to the campus administration, vice principal, principal. After that, it kind of depends on what the issue is. Typically, you're directed towards the proper channels at the district level, and then moving on to a board member, or emailing the board rather. So I believe in the board being there to help parents and students. That's our jobs, is to do what's best for our community, parents, students, teachers, everyone. So I would always welcome parents to reach out to me and ask who they should contact on specific topics. And if they have exhausted those channels, you know, bringing it to me for reconsideration to take to the board and bring up at a public meeting.
Thank you so much. Same question to you, Stephanie.
Yeah, just like as Craig said, that is the chain of command. You talk with your teacher directly. If you don't get the resolve, then you would move on to administration, vice principal, principal, and then again, depending on, you know, if it's a situation happening on the bus, for example, you would then be in contact with transportation department. And so we have all these different departments at our district that are responsible for different areas. And so you would be directed there. You should be directed there by the principal. And then in my case, where my concern, which I mentioned very early on in this discussion, was directly with the board. I felt obviously no need to go to my child's teacher and my principal, but rather I addressed the board because it directly involved the board. So again, it kind of just depends on the situation, but that is definitely the chain of command. And I would always invite any parent to email me if they don't know, and I will find out. So it's better to get you to where you need to be before you feel, you know, lost and not knowing where to go.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. And, you know, I think this is a really great question coming from actually another school board candidate that we just had a forum with a couple weeks ago. And his question is basically your wrap up. So with so many candidates in this race, because there are a lot, why are you the best choice? And so this time we're going to go ahead and start with Stephanie, and let's just treat this as your closing statements, because you know these folks in Deer Valley Unified School District have an awful lot of choices, and the folks want to know, with so many candidates in the race, Stephanie, why are you the best choice?
Okay. As I mentioned before at the beginning, I have a strong passion for public education. It's what holds our community together. I don't want to have board members that are part of our community that aren't in there for the right reasons. Success can only be accomplished by someone who has a desire to work closely and effectively with families and with teachers and with staff. And someone who believes that we must not take for granted that future of our community, which is our children. Today, I've asked for your support, and I thank you for your time and your consideration. I would love to be able to hear your stories, and I want you to tell me your biggest concerns that you have for the future of our public education system, as well personally in our community of Deer Valley, and how we can work together as a community to solve our problems and create more solutions. Again, I am a parent, prior teacher, current substitute, and current volunteer. So I'm active in our community at Deer Valley. I feel like I have a strong understanding of what is going on, and I feel like I can provide so much from my own experiences to be able to be a strong school board member for our community.
Great, thank you so much. And real quick, before I hit you up on the same exact closing statement, Craig, I'm going to take a moment to talk a little bit about some of the programming that we have coming up here with Secular AZ on Wednesday, July 13th at 6 p.m. Look at us, we're venturing outside of Maricopa County. Super excited about that. We have board members, board candidates, I should say, joining us from the Flagstaff Unified School Board governing, or school district governing board district, to talk about why they're the best candidates, because we can't forget Arizona is a very large state. I look forward to hearing the voices of people in the north part of our state. So that's Wednesday, July 13th at 6 p.m. if you like this kind of programming. On Thursday, July 21st at 6 p.m. This is going to be a very interesting panel for discussion: reproductive rights, justice, and religion. This is a panel discussion, and we're going to have members, leading members from different religious affiliations to talk about the overturning of Roe v. Wade and what it means for the state of Arizona and how it affects them as religious leaders. So I really hope that you'll sign up for that one. And then on July 22nd, another really good conversation coming up with Catherine Joyce. She is a published author from Salon Magazine, from the New Republic, Mother Jones. She's an author of a book called Quiverful, and she's talking about Christo-fascist attacks on the LGBT community. If you have a chance to look up Catherine Joyce, I highly recommend that you do, because some of the things that we're seeing play out at our state legislatures are happening not just here, but all over the country. So same question to you, Craig. And again, please, Stephanie, put your links up there. We are a nonpartisan organization, but we're here to share the information with the people. So any links that you have to your social media, like Craig already has, please go ahead and share those. And Craig, same question to you. Why are you the best candidate for this position in Deer Valley Unified?
I'm here to advocate for all parents, students, and educators. I have no agenda. I've spent the last year and a half presenting information and guiding parents through their children's educational journey in a nonpartisan manner, as nonpartisan as I can be. This isn't a role for me to bring my personal opinions, my political leanings, or my religious convictions into. This is a role that is designed to support 32,000 students and the community that goes along with it, the staff members, all stakeholder groups. And we just need to do better. Like we need to make sure that we're representing all these children, not just the ones that align with our beliefs. And I believe that myself and Stephanie are the people to do that. We've worked very get out into the community and listen to parents and their concerns. I was super sold on standards-based grading until I started having the conversations with parents and understanding what their frustrations were. We have a unique lens in being parents in the district right now. Not all candidates can say that. We have a unique lens of having different backgrounds, Stephanie being an educator and myself having a background in marketing. We're able to kind of play off of each other and help each other understand what's important in those areas. I think that I bring a unique skill set to the district in improving that parent and teacher relationship and making sure that we're communicating, because that's a major failure. That is, like I said before, that is something that I have seen over and over and over again. When parents are upset or frustrated, it was not the policy, but the lack of communication or the lack of standardization or unification in a unified district. We just need to make sure that we're doing better for our parents and our families and our students, our teachers and our staff. And I think that, I'm ready to do that. And I ask for everyone's support. I will always be there to listen to the needs of the community and not push something that I feel is the right thing if parents don't feel that way. We won't always agree on things, but I will always listen to you and take your issues to the appropriate parties and vote the way the community wants me to vote. Here to represent the people, not special interest groups, not politics, not religions. Here to represent our students, our parents, and our community.
Well, I will tell you what, I just am so happy that both of you had the time in your very busy schedules to be able to join us today. Your passion is palpable. People may not agree with everything that you said, but the fact that you showed up today, I think shows your community that you're willing to show up for what needs to be done. It is, somebody said earlier something about, it's not as glamorous as getting to the state ledge where we get, people get paid a whole $24,000 a year. But the fact that you're here is just really impressive. I appreciate you both very much. And again, as the ED for Secular AZ, I'm going to encourage each and every one of you, while my dogs are barking in the background, that you should all become members today, that you should support our work, because this is very important work to make sure that we, keep church and state separate, and that we do it not just at the state legislative level, but that we do it at the heart of our democracy, which is our school board. So thank you to Stephanie Simachek for coming. Thank you to Craig Beckman for coming. And thank you to everybody who came tonight. And again, if this is the work that you want to see, if this is the programming that you want to see, please make sure that you become a member today. I know that Lindsay has shared all kinds of links up there, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Let's see what's happening in Flagstaff, everybody, and see how we can support the candidates that care about kids and their community up in the North Country. So thank you so much for being here. Y'all have a great night. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.